Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Ella. I'll be the host for this panel. I'm from We Are the Red Sea. So, the Red Sea is a menstrual justice organization who we're fighting to break the stigma around menstruation and eliminate period poverty through service and educational opportunities like this panel. So we have three panelists joining us today. I will introduce them in a little bit, but just like a quick overview of this panel. This panel is Black Menstruators, Seattle based. So we have some organizers, we have some really great people who are experienced, and they're just going to give us like their insight. I'm going to ask them some questions, just like your typical kind of run of the mill panel, but like with an added spice, because like we are gonna make this pretty fun. So just a reminder, this is recorded, so if anyone wants to like watch it later, we'll like send out the recording. Yeah, okay, so I think I'm gonna just get started introducing the panelists. So first up, we have Josie. Let's wait until she's out here. Is she here? Aggie? Okay, so we just need to wait for one of our panelists to get out. They're all in breakout rooms at the moment. In the meantime, oh, she's here. Everybody's here. Okay, first up we have Josie. Hi. So Josie is a 17-year-old graduate from West Seattle High School. She'll be going to the UW next year. Yay. Okay. She just graduated and she also recently got into activism. And I'm really excited about having her on the panel because she actually just donated a bunch of products and a bunch of different stuff to our organization, which is super exciting. And we're just super glad to have her on this panel. She is also super excited to be here. Okay. Next, I'm going to introduce Betel. Okay. So Betel is a 17-year-old high school student, a rising senior. She is involved with the Red Sea. She's one of my fellow organizers with the Red Sea. She is mostly on like the policy and content creation side of things for the Red Sea. She has campaigned for menstrual equity legislation in Washington state. She would like economic and social equity for every woman, menstruator, person of color. And as an added bonus, she loves tea. So we are super excited to have her here because I've been organizing with her at the Red Sea for not very long, but she is a wonderful organizer and she will just give some great insight for this panel. Next up, we have Kirsten. Kirsten Harris-Talley is an activist, community educator, and queer Black mother from the Rainier Valley in Southeast Seattle, who is running for the 37th Legislative State Representative. Kirsten has been building movements for change and healing in Washington state for 20 years. As an abolitionist, she is active in Block the Bunker and No New Youth Jail, movements for police accountability and ending incarceration. She was also a founding board member of Surge Reproductive Justice and a founding circle member of Black and Tan Hall. Kirsten recently served as the executive director of NARAL Pro-Choice, Washington, where she led the statewide fight for reproductive health care for everybody. She is running for state representative in the Seattle's Southside 37th District to bring her advocacy and her neighbors' solution to the halls of Olympia. So I'm super excited to have all these amazing panelists on our panel today. Okay, so now I think that I'm just gonna get right into the questions. So our first question is, this is just like a pretty quick thing. I just want all of our panelists to say their name, pronouns. You can say like your age. I already said 2 of you guys, so don't feel too pressured about that. And any like organizations you're part of, or like anything you just want to like put out there really quick. We'll start with Josie and then go to Betel and then Kirsten.
Okay, so my name is Josie. Like she said, I'm 17 years old, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm not really super like into organizing. Like I haven't really just like dove into it too much yet, but I just started a fundraiser, like you said, and I am raising money for feminine like hygiene products for like people that just really need it, and like all the proceeds are going to the Red Sea. So that's what I've got going on now.
Hi, I'm Betel. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also 17, as Ella has said, and I'm a part of the Red Sea, so shout out to them and everyone involved in that. And recently I just started working with Generation Ratify, which is an organization basically campaigning for different pieces of legislation that or senators in order to ratify the Constitution and get it so the Equal Rights Amendment is passed. Yeah.
And I'm Kirsten Harris-Talley, she, her pronouns, and I am 41 years old. And I'm going to give a shout out to Surge Reproductive Justice. It's a Black-led organization at the intersection of so many issues for menstruating people, anyone who needs reproductive freedom in their lives and liberation, and cannot say enough about Jackie Vaughn's leadership there and how they've plugged into the CRIM Seattle, mutual aid, COVID-19 mutual aid, just a number of issues that are so central right now as we think about these issues. Thanks for having this huge conversation. It's great to be here with Red Sea.
Okay, thank you so much. So this next question is also for everyone, but the next question is, what does menstrual justice mean to you? And what do you want people to know about menstrual justice right from the start? We'll go in the same order.
Okay, so this question was like a really like interesting question to answer, because I like menstrual justice wasn't the like first thing that really got me into activism, but it like immediately was like extremely important to me like as soon as I started like learning about it, because there are so many like different like levels to it. And like I just feel like, as someone that has always like kind of had everything I needed like for my period and all that, like I still like had like such a hard time with it, and like missing school, like the whole like 9 yards, you know what I mean? And like then it led me towards like birth control, where other people don't have like access to that. And like it to me, it's like for someone that doesn't have those resources, like I honestly can't really like imagine how like frustrating it could be, like just all these things coming at such annoying costs. And so that's just kind of like what it means to me. Like it's just important that everyone like genuinely gets what they need, and that's just not happening right now.
Pretty much echoing what Josie said. I believe that menstrual justice means that everybody has the access to period products as well as everything else they need, such as birth control and the access to reproductive rights, you know, that some people in this country just aren't having the same rights as other people in that area. And I feel that the menstrual justice movement is important because it would provide people with a safe space to talk about their period, and just for people to be comfortable with menstruation. And I want people to know that menstrual justice is crucial for social and economic equality. Until we have menstrual justice, women, menstruators of all kinds, are gonna be set back socially and economically, because they won't be able to afford the goods, or they won't be able to attend school or stuff like that. So I feel like in order to have equality in this country, we need to really address menstrual justice.
For me, menstrual justice is the same as any justice issue. And for me, you don't have justice unless the most impacted folks are the voices that are centered in the solutions and the context of the problem and what direction we need to go to make change. So for me, at the center of menstrual justice is right, thinking about what is the spectrum of identity and the spectrum of experiences that folks who menstruate have. And that means, for so many of us, wrapping our minds around, that our trans siblings are also menstruating and the needs that they have look different than me as a cisgendered woman, right, in those. And what I love about the justice orientation is it expands the imagination of what's possible for everyone when we think in those ways. So that's what I feel really excited about, having a justice orientation to the issue, because we need to have a more expansive conversation.
Thank you so much. And just a quick reminder, when we say menstrual justice, we mean menstrual justice for all menstruators, not just cis menstruators. We mean all menstruators. So our next question is for Josie and Betel. This question is, why do Black organizers and Black menstruators need to be at the forefront of the menstrual justice movement and other movements such as access to healthcare, reproductive rights, and so on?
Okay, so I feel like the best way to approach this question would be talking about intersectionality, because people who already are menstruators, they already have that card that they're having to deal with. And on top of that, there's so many people of color and trans people and just people in the LGBT community that also are having to deal with that card on top of also being a menstruator. And I feel like then you start to get into things like poverty and stuff like that, and it all comes together, and it's really, really hard to ignore that the people who are intersecting at more angles, I guess, are having to deal with a lot more. And I feel like this is that's who we need to I don't know, talk about. I don't know if that really answered the question very well, but yeah.
Pretty much why I think Black organizers are very important to the movement is because, unfortunately, a lot of the issues such as inadequate health care or lack of, or jeopardized reproductive rights, lack of access to menstrual hygiene products, all of those things impact Black communities more than they do other communities. And I feel like for that reason, Black menstruators need to be in the forefront of this movement, because they have experiences and a perspective that other people don't. And as well as what Josie said about intersectionality, that is a must. We have to address every single person and how they might be impacted differently than just a regular white woman might be. There's different layers of oppression that happen. And for that reason, just again, I feel like Black organizers, are very, very important to the movement, and we really can't have a full dialogue without having them included.
Thank you guys so much. All those points you hit were so wonderful. That was so encompassing of everything. Okay, so our next question is going to be for Kirsten and Betel. What has your experience been in the menstrual justice space / reproductive rights space, and why do you think Black menstruators are often pushed out of the conversation? So this question, we're going to go Kirsten, Betel.
That's a really great question. I have been involved, my early roots in reproductive justice built the base of my activism. And I feel really honored that I entered that activism space through the lens of reproductive justice, because it's a Black, brown, Indigenous, queer-led movement, which gave that intersectional piece that Josie just brought up, right? It's the base of how the work's done and the centering of those impacted voices. What needs to be, explicitly said is that anytime we have BIPOC spaces, right? What anti-Blackness looks like in that space has to be contextualized and brought up over and over again, because even amongst other Black, brown, Indigenous folks, right, anti-Blackness comes up, and also Indigenous erasure. So that comes, I think, in any issue, but also, of course, in menstruation conversations. And I think the way anti-Blackness shows up is why you continue to see those voices marginalized, right? All the ways in which these systems perpetuate that Blackness is not valid, right? More Black people are impoverished, not because we are Black, but because the system will not allow us to accumulate wealth. More of us are incarcerated, not because we are criminals, but because the system is created to have any grievance that we have in society, right, criminalized. So those things really matter, and that's really important for these conversations. The conversations talking, right, about intersections with policing systems, what it is to menstruate while incarcerated, what it is to give birth while incarcerated, what it is to be pregnant, right? Like all the things that come with menstruation as the way your life can be impacted, right? The continuing line of if you're not cared for on a monthly basis when you're menstruating, you're also not going to be cared for all the things that menstruation can bring into your life. So that's to me why it's so important to make sure we recenter Black voices, Indigenous voices, POC voices, but particularly because of how anti-Blackness shows up, making sure Black leadership is always clearly there and listened to is really, really essential.
I've just like started out in the menstrual justice movement. So with my experiences, I would say that it's been pretty good for me actually, just because people have been very inclusive, and I feel like I've definitely seen how Black women or menstruators in general just get shut out of this space and taken over by people who are seen as more ideal to run the organization or to run the thing, because I feel like it's just like kind of like racist attitudes, like things like prejudices and things that people hold like that, and it really gets in the way of people being able to do, like Black people being able to get up and do stuff. Like I feel like people just have these like prejudices, and it just doesn't allow a space for Black people in the end. And I'm so happy that I came into the movement when people were really realizing, hey, Black voices actually matter. And I'm so glad that I came in during that time, because it really gives me a good opportunity. But for all the people who came before and were really struggling to get their organization off the ground or stuff like that, I really feel badly for them, because what they had to say and their experiences and their perspective is really important. Just as a Black woman, like, you experience things way differently than your white counterpart. So I feel like I don't know, I feel badly, and I'm happy that the conversation is being recentered, as Kristen had said.
Okay, thank you so much. And this is just a reminder for our panelists. Aggie had this idea, but you guys can also like talk to each other, have like a convo, let it flow naturally. Now our next question is about white savior nonprofits. So this question is just like white savior nonprofits, like if you've had experiences with them, like just say those, like thoughts on them, like why they're harmful, anything like that. And this question is for Josie and Kirsten, so we'll go Josie, Kirsten.
I feel like the conversation about like white saviors just in general is like really important to have, like especially like in this movement, but it's also really important in like a lot of other things, like such as like adoptions, like missionary trips, like stuff like that. And like I feel like nonprofits need to, like, the whole point of them is to help people that need help. And the idea of white saviors kind of just like doing it just to like just for personal gain, kind of like, even though they're technically helping other people, like that's really like harmful to just say like, oh, I'm literally saving the world, like look at all these like marginalized people that I'm helping. Like I don't really have a whole lot of experiences with them, but it honestly like just makes me sick, honestly, that people have that type of attitude towards helping people.
Yeah, I think the reason, right, that sensation comes up is that white saviorism is an extension of white supremacy, right? It's an extension of an idea that only whiteness understands anything, only whiteness can be leaders, only whiteness has solutions, and dismisses, right? Like most of the globe is melanins, right? Like most of us everywhere. And the context of that, when I think about this issue of menstruation, right, the way NGOs show up in the global South, right? Like as a Black woman, I can't not talk about, right, like what's happening in Africa around sexuality and birthing and menstruation rights, right? And, you know, how homophobia, like all these intersections, right, of how that work shows up in those spaces, and how these organizations and individuals show up. The shift, right, is to move from white saviorism to white accompliceship, which like is the shift from centering your own whiteness and this orientation that we all have of anti-Blackness, right, that says somehow Blackness isn't valid as the leader and the voice, and following the leadership of Black people. And that means making mistakes and making amends and doing it again the next day. And so the great thing in this moment is like, if you are find yourself as an individual organization that has been in that white savior mode, it's okay. You can stop doing it at any time and start doing anti-racism work, right? And as Yoma Olo says, the beauty of anti-racism is you can be at whatever level in your racism journey and start doing the work. So you could just stop being a savior and start doing the work. So I would just call in anyone who's running an org that you're hearing this and going, wait, we do that? Stop doing it, get a Black leader to stand beside you and help you on your journey to get right with history and get right with the movement.
Thank you so much. That was super great. I just want to like touch on like one of the points Kirsten said. Yes, like we're not just like talking about exclusively in the US, but like white savior nonprofits kind of go everywhere. They go to like my siblings in Africa, they go to our siblings in Asia, in South America, Central America. So it's just, that's just, yeah. Our next question is for Betel and Josie. So actually, wait, I think I want to have everybody answer this question. Our question is, how can organizing spaces be more inclusive and equitable when it comes to centering Black organizers' voices? And definitely you guys can like have a conversation around this, like just let it flow naturally. And we can just like start with like Josie, Betel, Kirsten, whatever you guys want to do.
I'm excited to have a combo. This is a good one.
Okay. I want to hear like everyone's thoughts on this kind of, because I'm not sure if this is just me, but I really like whenever, because I'm not really part of like many organizations, but I talk about like kind of getting into activism like a lot with my friends and family. And like what's really frustrating is like when people aren't really willing to like listen to kind of like why you're wanting to like do stuff like this, like the genuine like history and like emotions and feelings like behind why you're fighting like so hard for, maybe it's like one specific thing, maybe it's a ton of things, but I don't like it when there's no space to really kind of like share your own personal like feelings kind of about the issue, because I feel like that's a really good way to get people into it, is like hearing them like, or having them hear what it really means to you.
I think that the first step to having like a more inclusive and safe space when it comes to organizations is to be willing to listen to Black people and people of color when they tell you, hey, like we're hurting, or hey, we're upset about this. Like being able to listen to people and acknowledging, at least first, like acknowledging what they have to say is a really good first step, instead of sweeping it under the rug because maybe you're unfamiliar with what they're experiencing or anything like that. So that would be the first step. And just also like calling out to Black people in your community, being like, hey, we need help with this. Like, would you be willing to help us? And just kind of like, I've heard of like diversifying your feed on Instagram, where you like follow different people who don't look like you or don't have much in similarities with you. And I feel like that could be something that organizations do, like seek out people who are different than the people in the organization, just to get different voices, because a goal of like a nonprofit organization is to help people, and in order to help people is to have like an inclusive space where everyone feels heard and represented.
Yeah, I love what you said there, right? Because we talk a lot about inclusion and diversity in a lot of spaces. And then when it comes down to it, how often have one of us shown up in the spaces and looked around? And it's like, no one looks like me. And moreover, no one looks also different from me, right? With a different perspective than me, with another set of intersections that we need to have voice there. And what that usually means, right, is that folks are following their comfort zone. And the truth is, like, the struggle ain't comfortable. It's called a struggle for a reason. Like, if you aren't sort of sitting there and wondering, like, is what's emerging, right? Like, there's a difference between discomfort and not being safe. And whiteness wants to play it safe all the time, right? Masculinity, patriarchy wants us to play it safe all the time. And this work takes boldness and energy. So folks have to be okay with the spectrums of emotion that come with the work and the grief, right? Like, a lot of us are carrying the message from generations. That's why our voice is raised a little bit. That's why our words have a little fire under them. That's why we show up with as much boldness as we do, because we've got a message to carry for a lot of folks who haven't been heard. And for folks to really sit and listen and hear, but moreover, not to just listen to then take the action that's requested, that's the real. And that's what we need to see every day. And so that to me is what the opportunities are. And when I've seen the work grow and shift quickly, we're in a historical moment where the organizing that's happening, it's about collectiveness. And that's only going to take everyone showing up over and over and over again. And that's, to me, at the end of the day, if it's not a collective, I know it's not going to work. Everything we've won has been in a collective and taken time. The No New Youth Jail announcement last week, right, blew many of our minds, because that was 8 years of struggle all day, every methodology you could imagine, every generation, right? Someone's grandma and someone's baby. I was out there with my babies when they were babies. So I appreciate the way organizing is showing up now on all these platforms, that many voices can do what you were talking about, Betel, right? You can follow a scholar in your own backyard who doesn't look like you and know that what they're dropping is wisdom, and that you need to heed the call, which is a humbling invitation to all of us.
I just wanted to add on to what Kirsten said, because she brought up a lot of good points. And I feel like the fight and the struggle is so important. I feel like just when, as an organizer, a really good question you should ask yourself is ask, like, why am I doing this? And just why, like, having the why is like the first step to, like, you listening to other people, you being accommodating to other people, listening and welcoming different people in your space. If you have your why, then you'll be more empathetic and more willing to help other people.
I also wanted to talk about, like, kind of in organizing spaces, just because I feel like specifically, like, for Black women, it can be, like, really easy to kind of, like, take on a lot, like, at once, because a lot of us have just been experiencing a lot of shit for a long time. And, like, I think that in spaces where we're, like, organizing, like, how to take action, like, how to educate, I feel like help needs to be, like, provided, like, quite a bit, especially from people that don't look like us. And I feel like a lot of people kind of just push it onto us. Like, they'll say things like, oh, like, she's super strong, like, she's got it, she's so, like, whatever it may be. But that's not always true. And, like, we need help just as much as the next person. And, like, a lot of times people don't listen to us like they would someone that looks different than us. So that's like a kind of a second answer to that question, where it's kind of like, we need help. Like, yes, we're smart, yes, we're strong, but, like, we can't save the world by ourselves. You know what I mean?
Those were just wonderful points. I loved everything you guys just said. Okay, so yeah, I just have, like, that conversation was really good. So we're actually, like, getting close to being done with questions. We have just, like, a few more questions. So our next question is, do you have any advice for Black organizers, activists, just people who, like, may want to get involved and hold space in organizing spaces? And this question, any of you guys can answer. We can do it kind of the same as the last question, because that was a super good format. So yeah, just like any like advice, any like words of wisdom, any like personal experiences are also welcome here.
Like I actually kind of need advice, so I'm not going to speak too much on this, but I will say that like recently, since I kind of like started my like Instagram account where I'm like posting resources and all that, there has been like quite a bit of like backlash, I guess, just because there's a lot of people out there that don't really believe our experiences. And I feel like setting boundaries and like genuinely like, I know it's easier said than done, but not listening to them. I know that's a vague whatever, but not listening to them and like setting boundaries with yourself and knowing like your worth and what you're fighting for is like extremely important to constantly remind yourself. Like every day, like throughout the day if you even have to.
I just want to second what Josie said, because that's something I've struggled with, where it's like, oh, but I should give them a fair chance, or I want to hear what everyone has to say, but at some point people are just like trolling you. Like they're not there for the right reasons. And when you recognize that, it's only beneficial to set some boundaries, like she said. So that's something very important. And I feel like that is something that like I struggled with the feminist club at my school. People would just come and they would not be respectful, and I felt like I could like change their perspective, but at some point like just get like mobilizing and do something else. And that's like my other tip is like, if you're thinking about joining an organization, just join, like get started. You don't have to have all the answers yet. Just move, do something, go, and then all the answers will come to you. And then you'll realize like, do I want to do this? Like, is this something I want to take part in? But just if you don't start, then you like never know. And I also want to say that it's important to research and learn about the organizations in your community, as well as like different policies, laws, other stuff like that that can help you have a better understanding of what's going on around you. So research and educate yourself. And I also feel like having a really good social media platform and utilizing social media is really good. So social media is like only there to benefit you. You can only grow off of social media. So really just like, if you're wanting to get moving in the platform, you just have social media there and you can just get started with that way.
Oh my gosh, so both of those were fire. That's amazing. I think the things I've really taken away from being an activist in the work for 2 decades in an intersection of movements, all of which, right, move on different timelines. There's no way starting Black Lives Matter work any of us could have anticipated after a global pandemic pause, right? The movement would get the visibility it deserves in the way it has. And the two things that I've learned the hard way in organizing is that you have to have self-care. You have to have self-preservation. We need every person in this movement. And, I'm not talking about yoga pants, bath salts, self-care. I'm talking about, are you fueling the vessel of your body so you can show up, right? Are you giving yourself time for connection with your ancestors or whatever your centering base is for you, right? Some people follow faith, whatever that is that centers you, your family, whatever it is, make sure that touchstone is there, right? My big thing I have had to learn over time, I show up, I'm energy, go, go, go. And I have burnt myself out many times in the movement and learned the hard way that I needed to take pause before then. And I now have a group of folks who keep me accountable in that. They check in with me and go, have you taken care of yourself? And I also want to say we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes in the work, every one of us. I mean, looking back even at movements back, knowing that the civil rights movement, right, allowed homophobia to thrive as they were fighting for Black lives and integration, right? That was in hindsight, a misstep for the movement, right? We all make mistakes. And what you need to learn as an activist is how to make amends. And amends is more than just words of apology. It's then making it right if you can. And the real shift is changing your behavior so it doesn't happen again. And really embracing what amends is what gives our ability to have the ebbs and flows of trust and mistakes that humans make and still be collectively moving forward. So accountability in that regard feels really, really important too for how we all show up for each other in the long run.
Okay, so the next question is kind of bouncing off of the last question, but some people have like different capacities on how they can get involved. I know like my capacity to get involved changes so frequently. So the next question is just like a few simple ways you can get involved, and like just like some like, oh, like I can do this, like it won't take me too long. I can focus on other stuff as well. And this question I actually want to start with Josie, and then everybody else can answer, because like I know like Josie, you like recently started doing some stuff like for like fundraising and just like small little stuff like that. So thank you so much, and I would like you to start this question.
So for me, getting involved started with social media, and because I'm on it all the time anyway as a 17-year-old, so I decided to start using it for something good. And so I started with social media. I started following like certain accounts where I could like legit like just learn, because I know like what being Black has meant for me like my whole life. I know what being a menstruator has been like for me, and I know what being a woman has been like. But I wanted to hear other people's perspectives, like from anywhere and all that. So I started following like a bunch of other people. I started reposting a ton of resources, like especially right at like during that week that George Floyd died. And so that's where it started. And then I decided to make a separate account just for activism. And I like, and not everyone maybe wants to do that, but that really helped like keep it all in one spot. And from there, like I know I have like all these cards I've been dealt, like um where like yeah, like I'm a minority, but I have financial privilege. My family and I have financial privilege. So I decided like what can we do with that could severely help people. And like I don't even know if severely would be the right word, but like impactfully help people. And that's when I decided to do the fundraiser. And so like we kind of started just everyone in my family like pitching in a little bit, and I decided to stack on my social media platform just amongst people my age. And then you just I don't know, you kind of just like let it grow. You don't really care what other people think. And um and I've only really seen like pretty good things come from it. Like before that, I was doing things like sharing petitions, because sharing something with someone is something that everyone can do. And so sharing petitions, signing them, and learning about why we're actually doing all this stuff. You know, people can donate, people can go to protests if they're able. Like there's a lot of things that people can do, and it ranges from very small things to, you know, very big things. I don't know.
I just want to say that social media is such like a blessing for people just starting off. Like you have a platform, you can grow it, you can introduce new people to it, and you can really spread your message that you want to spread and raise awareness for issues that you care about. So if you're just starting off, social media is really low risk and it's a really great option. Sharing petitions is also really nice, and education I feel like is something really important, and just education beyond like, okay, you know about the Black Lives Matter movement, but like how can you help this movement, or what what is systemic racism and how is it being upheld in this community, and just research different things. Like recently I've been learning about the prison system, and I've just been like, that really has blown my mind. Like I was watching TV the other day, and it was like a man was in jail for 37 years, a Black man. And I learned the prison system basically is like forced labor. And so they were using him for his labor, and all of like the products that we have in our lives, like a lot of them that say made in the USA are probably made in prisons, which is blowing my mind. So educate yourself and learn about these different things. There's a lot of virtual options right now. I joined a virtual book club, so you can do that on the book about the prison system. So I'm learning through that. And yeah, I feel like education is a really good way to get involved right now. and write if you can. I love to write how you're feeling, what you're feeling, educate other people through your writing. Yeah, just like find different things that you care about and find a way to support the movement and do activism through the passions that you already have.
Yeah, I think both of you just gave like such incredible advice. And what I appreciate about what both of you said, right, is that there is an entry point for every person, no matter where you're coming from or what the why, whatever your personal why is, right? But tell us, or like find that why, whatever it is, there is an entry point for you. So, you know, if you don't think you're social media savvy, that's okay. You can ask a friend and show up at a protest, right? Or you can sign that petition that they forward to you if you don't feel fully educated, right? Reach out, talk to people. I ask a lot of why questions, what questions, and I just freely admit when I don't know things. Go in with that kind of humility, right? And folks will show up for you. I am blessed in my activism and my work because folks have shown up and been like, get right. Have you read this author? Have you read this analysis? Right? Miss Angela Davis didn't write that. Right? Sit down with this for a minute. And the other piece right now, right? Like COVID-19 is real. It's hurting Black, Brown, Indigenous people disproportionately. It's hurting folks, right, who menstruate. Like all these things are real, and like you don't have to put your sacrifice your body and put it on the line to show up in our movement. Like you can do this from the comfort and safety of your couch if you need to, but also if you can be in the streets, be in the streets. Like there's 1,000 ways to show up. And you know, I want to say also to elders who engage in this, who think that folks who show up in the streets but don't vote are doing it wrong, all of it adds up. And voting is really, really important. And I want folks to vote. And I also know that folks who are like, I don't feel seen in that, and I don't know if voting's the path for me, I want to invite you to like campaigns like ours that are trying to meld that, like what it is to be active in movements, and say that you can vote for activists and we can like do this work together on the other side. So I hope we're going to continue to build bridges there, because I know generationally, right? Like my great grandmother couldn't vote, not because of anything she did, because of the color of her skin and the, you know, the gender she was assigned at birth. So that stuff's really real. And to find the entry point, if you know someone and you feel comfortable to ask them the question, I'm sure they'll guide you to the what place that you can show up in the work. They really will hold your hand, which I've appreciated always from the movement.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Those were all super good answers. So we're getting close to our time where we're gonna ask some questions that just like the audience has asked, that other people are just wondering about. But I do have one question. Let me just. Okay. So what inspired you guys to get like in? Sorry, I'm so sorry. I said guys. That's very gendered. What inspired you all to get started in activism and organizing? For me, it was as simple as planting a tree, but it's literally different for everyone. And I'm just wondering, what have you all's experience been?
Okay, so personally, like I've always been this type of person that like constantly wants to speak out and like be heard and talk about stuff that is just important to me, like whether it be something as serious as this or my favorite, you know, like flavor of Lay's chips, I don't know. But I'm constantly wanting to like talk about stuff all the time, and I feel like this is like an extremely like good outlet for that, because I'm like, it's almost like taking care of myself, where I'm like, oh my gosh, like people are hearing me, like it like feels good. And also I like know that I actually am helping people, like whether it be like inside or like with tangible like things that they like need. And like when I'm older, because I want to be like a sexual assault advocate, and I know that that's going to help people, and for some reason I just can't like wait on that for some reason until I graduate from college. So I wanted to figure out ways where I could still get that like fulfilling, like speaking out, being heard, helping people. And I feel like this is just what I need right now. So
For me, what inspired me to be an activist is, I guess, like the come up. I don't know, like growing up for me, like I'm an immigrant, I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm a person who had to learn English in like I was like 6, but I still had to learn it. Like there was a lot of different things that I experienced that made me more empathetic for other people. And I feel like for me, it's always just been like, I want to help people, especially like I remember being young and being like, I really want to help women and children. So I've just always wanted to help people. And when I joined the feminist club and got to know about the issues that women face in this country, I was like, wow, okay, that's really messed up. And then just learning and educating myself, I was like, there needs to be something that I can do right now. And my first goal that I had as like a person trying to make change was to get rid of the Washington state tampon tax, like menstrual hygiene tax. And I was literally just me and the feminist club, like we were like writing letters, trying to work it out. And I feel like I just needed to make a change. And so for me, that's where I started. And as I found out more about like menstrual hygiene and how that in fact impacts people in prisons, and just like not having those items necessary, it just is not fair for people to half the population to go through that and the other half to just be completely like just not aware. I was just doesn't make any sense. So I knew I had to go into activism for that reason. And yeah, just my experiences have led me to activism. And I feel like whatever you experience, how can you help other people not experience what you experienced, or how can you help those who don't have the things that you feel like are necessary and that they must have?
So I was thinking through, and I think the first piece of activism I did, and at the time I didn't think of it as activism, but I think hindsight's 2020, was actually in high school. My best friend and I made a zine, and we went to the local Planned Parenthood. There had been a number of folks who were, getting STDs and all sorts of things, and we had an abstinence-only curriculum in our high school, and we put free condoms from the local Planned Parenthood in our zine, and made photocopies and handed them out all over the school. And they had, like, to folks' points, right, like the education that we weren't allowed to be taught in the classroom, we put in that zine and made sure anyone who could find it found it. And we did it in a way where we stayed anonymous. There was this whole cycle for a month where they were trying to figure out who did it, and they were going to suspend us and all this stuff. And right, like community showed up around us. The handful of folks who knew didn't turn us in, right? Like made sure we could still put our message out there and put that out there. And, I was this little queer Black girl in rural Missouri in the middle of nowhere, but felt emboldened, right, with collaboration from friends and being able to do it in a way that I knew I could be safe, right? This was before social media. This was before a lot of tools we have now of how do you get education out there. So I feel blessed that I've always had folks who've surrounded me and helped create the safety I needed to be bold in the ways I need to. That comes from doing our piece in the collective. And I'm so glad I took that first step and have been able to continue the work, because the work's still here to do. And I think it's a work of a lifetime to bring justice anywhere we can. So super excited to be in the struggle with all y'all doing that work.
Thank you so much. Okay, that was really inspiring, to be honest. The next few questions are just from, we have some people who are like asking questions. We put out an Instagram little thing. Some people are like typing up questions. So our first question is, how can non-Black folks be good allies with their fellow Black menstruation justice warriors? And anybody can answer.
I think that the first step to being a really good ally is being able to show up when you are needed to show up, and being able to listen to people. And when Black people say, hey, we need help with this, or this is something that we don't have the same right as you do with this, like listen to them, hear them, and feel like empowered to take action on their behalf and those who aren't taking it seriously in this movement. And obviously, like as an ally, I feel like let people of color speak, like give them that platform to speak, and encourage them, honestly.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to transition right after this, but I love this question. And I just want to say, if BIPOC folks, if queer folks, if folks with disability, right, like whatever the intersection of experience someone is bringing to something they say, believe them, and follow their lead on what they want to see in the change, right? Again, that white savior thing. Don't believe them and then go sit by yourself and decide what they need. Believe them and then ask them what they need, and then use every bit of privilege you had to make sure they get what they need. I think it's really that simple. And again, also, don't get worn out real quick. The rest of us have been in this work, take the rest you need, but you need to be beside people and behind people in the work. Don't go, it didn't get done in 5 minutes, I'm out. The struggle takes a minute. So keep showing up and being an accomplice in the work in that way.
My answers are very, very similar. Like, I think that a huge important thing like is asking like people what they need, and also like being like willing to do like the education and work and stuff without them, if that makes sense. Like, you don't have to just be performative and like and do it just so that they can see it. Like, you have to be willing to like, hey, like maybe me and my family should watch 13th tonight or something like that. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much. And I know, Kirsten, you have to leave. So thank you so much for coming. Our other two panelists will actually stay on for like a hot second to like any like final thoughts, wrap up things. If you want to like boost any personal projects. Oh, and Kirsten just left. So I guess I can just like say something on her behalf, I guess. So her Instagram is electkht. There's a lot of good information on there. I'm on her youth team, so like I know about like some of this stuff. And then also her website, electkht.org. It's super informational, and you can like learn more about her. And yes, she's running for 37th district representative. So if you can vote, vote. And now I'll open it up to Josie and Betel. If you guys have like anything to boost, any like final thoughts or anything, just like kind of a wrap up.
I guess the only thing I really wanted to say was I like about my fundraiser, and my Instagram is Josie FMN, and like everything about the fundraiser is just in my Instagram. And yeah, I was just really happy that I was able to do this today. So thank you.
I just wanted to give a boost to an act that is currently out there, a House bill, and it's House Bill, I think 1882, otherwise known as the Menstrual Equity for All Act, and it would ensure that schools, certain businesses, over 100 people, prisons, all of those places, public places, had pads and tampons available in the bathroom, which is super cool. You can reach out to me and I can tell you how to phone bank and campaign for them if you're interested, but just educate yourself on the policies in our country and learn how to be a part of it and advocate for them. So yeah. Oh, also, I don't know if I'm gonna do this, but my Instagram is at Betel Tadesse. That doesn't help any of you guys. ABETEL I also had a really good time doing this and organizing this with Ella.
Thank you so much, both. I just have some like final things to wrap this up. So I guess, I mean, I'm not a panelist, but I can say like my Instagram. My Instagram is Ella, ELLA.CT.08. What else do I have to, oh yeah. So just like some menstrual justice organizations in the Seattle area. So there's the Red Sea, that's us. We're super cool. We take donations. And just like reach out to us if you want to like organize like a little fundraiser like Josie. And it's like so helpful because we can like provide products and just like provide for like people who are in need. And there's a few other ones. There's one called Box. They also like provide menstrual products. It's just BOX box. And then there's Tutia, which provides menstrual products for they just provide menstrual products. I think they also have a focus on like homeless menstruators. And I'm trying to think, there's some that I'm forgetting right now, but yeah, that's mostly that's in the Seattle area just for menstrual justice. And oh yeah, go follow us. We are the Red Sea. Oh, there's also one called Days for Girls. They also kind of like focus, they're kind of like more like nationwide international kind of thing, and they make like products for like people menstruators in like different countries and stuff like that. um yeah, I think that is all. And oh yeah, and the one I was just talking about, Days for Girls, since like schools around the world and stuff like that. So basically, I feel like that's all we really have to say. And go visit We Are the Red Sea on Instagram. So go follow that. We have a bunch of like informational content. It's super good. Okay. That's really all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for like coming to this panel. Thank you to the panelists for like being here. I know that it was like kind of a last minute-ish, but like you guys have been so good and this has been a wonderful experience. Oh yeah, and one more thing for like people watching. If you want to like get involved in any way, like just reach out to us. I already said that, but like DM us on Instagram, like email us, like whatever. We're like super open and like we really just like the more people helping, the better. So yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. This was so fun.